You're listening to WorkWire, sponsored by Career Club and SHRM. Career Club has a range of services aimed at job seekers with an empathetic approach. Whether you are a job seeker yourself, know someone who is in job search, or an HR professional looking to bring a more empathetic approach to transitioning employees, check out career.club. If you are an HR professional seeking to enhance your skills, subscribe to SHRM and explore their extensive resources. Visit shrm.org. That's shrm.org.
Hey everybody, this is Bob Goodwin, president of Career Club, joined by my good friend Johnny C. Taylor, president and CEO of SHRM. Johnny, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. How about you, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. Where do we find you today?
New Orleans, and it is like 99 degrees with 110% humidity, right? So I'm swampy. That's a good way to say it.
Awesome. Well, this is our second episode of the WorkWire, and it's great to see you again. So thank you. If you are a first-time listener, the idea behind the WorkWire was Johnny and I wanted to do a podcast that tackles what's in the news right now that impacts you as a worker, a leader, just anybody that's associated with the workplace, and how we can think about these issues, from more than one side, because sometimes we only see one side of an issue, and it's helpful to see other sides. Johnny, you want to add to that?
No, you just nailed it. The biggest issue is we don't, I think, aspire to say someone's right and someone's wrong, or one side's wrong or right. We just want to explore the issues and equip you, the human resources leader or the people manager, with a broader perspective on topical issues of the day.
Yeah. So we are going to, for episode 2, my friend, we are going to jump right into the deep end of the pool.
I feel
it. As we are recording this, there were several landmark cases coming down from the Supreme Court in the past few days around affirmative action with Harvard and the University of North Carolina. There was a webmaster case. There was the United States Postal Service case with working on Sundays. And so, Johnny, tell me how that impacted your week as the CEO of SHRM.
Well, you can only imagine as these decisions were rolling out at the end of the month, it was just craziness. I mean, we were all guessing or trying to guess where the court would land on all of these. And it's been fascinating. It's a blockbuster week for the court, especially when it comes to the world of work. And that's why it's so appropriate for us to talk about it at WorkWire. You had 3 very distinct cases come down dealing with topics that sort of started some time ago. Let's talk about in the LGBTQ case, there was, of course, the movement from the Masterpiece case, which was the cake case out of Colorado, and can a company refuse to supply or make a cake for an LGBTQ plus community member? That case was 2018. Well, then they brought it back before the court and said, let's talk about web designing. Yep. Can a web designer refuse? Both cases out of Colorado, and the case, of course, was decided in such a way where, in a very narrow ruling, the court said, guess what? That web designer, in a form of speech, a freedom of speech kind of case, said they are protected and don't have to provide services to someone based upon religious grounds. So it's a mixture of cases. Okay, then they left that and said, okay, let's deal with the issue that so many of us have dealt with. And that is an employee who says, I want a religious accommodation. I can't work on Sunday, or I can't work on Saturday, or I need 30 minutes a day to go pray. All of those issues, what is a reasonable accommodation? In times past, employers have sort of said, you can I'll look and see if I can do it. And basically everything was unreasonable. Well, the court said this time, it's not unreasonable. You're going to have to work really hard and prove that it is essentially an undue hardship. That wasn't exactly the standard, but essentially that's what it is. You've got to prove that you've done everything that you can to accommodate this religious request, or guess what? You will have violated the law. And then the biggie, case of the day, which was the affirmative action case. Now, it's important to understand that affirmative action case was not specifically in the context of work. The decision was limited specifically to universities, as you mentioned, Harvard University and the University of North Carolina, and that is affirmative action in the context of higher education, colleges and universities. So I I want to make sure everyone understands the implications for work are huge, because you kind of have an indication that if you in your workplace, are, as many of us have, diversity, equity, inclusion programs and efforts to recruit talent, if you think you're going to be able to do it the way you've done it, we've done it for the last 25 years, you're wrong. The law of the land has changed. Again, not specifically. The decision wasn't about what employers can do, but it's pretty darn clear that this is the new approach, the new abnormal, as I talk about a lot of my time.
So let's just dive into the big one.
Yeah.
We may be able to address the other ones either in the time, or maybe just do a different episode on that. It's a topic that's worth giving its due. But with the affirmative action case, I want to read just a little bit, from what Chief Justice Roberts wrote in his rationale. He said, both programs, this is talking about Harvard and North Carolina, lack sufficiently focused and measurable objectives warranting the use of race, unavoidably employ race in a negative manner, involve racial stereotyping, which is an interesting thing, and lack meaningful endpoints. We've never permitted admission programs to work in that way, and we will not do so today. And that last sentence, it wasn't tied exactly to it, but eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it.
Yes. No, it was a profound decision. I will tell you, as a reforming lawyer, I wasn't surprised at where this decision landed. Putting aside my point of view from a jurisprudence standpoint, I actually saw that there are arguments on both sides. The court could have landed either way, and neither way would have been wrong. I hope people understand it. Morally, perhaps you can argue, I don't agree with it. But from a purely legal sort of a logic standpoint, it made a lot of sense. It had a set of facts that did not see. This is fascinating and I think instructive when you think about work. This wasn't a case where a majority white community member was saying this is bad for, blacks are being given an advantage over us as well. No, this was about Asians, which is really interesting, because for the first time you had two minority groups potentially dueling. This had very little to do with a white person. It was Asians who were saying we were being negatively impacted and unconstitutionally subjected to a program. So very fascinating. We talk about, I remember, years ago, 2 decades ago, talking about what would happen when we were a majority minority country.
Yeah.
And guess what? Here we are. So the issue isn't white and black. It's white, brown, yellow, right? It's complicated now.
So because we're not going to necessarily deal with the university system, although you are uniquely positioned to talk about that given your prior role with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund.
And so many of our members, HR practitioners at SHRM, operate in that environment. But it's not about hiring, it's about admissions.
Yeah. So exactly. So that was an admissions thing. But the work community immediately weighed in. One, because, this is the talent pool that we're drawing from. So does that mean by definition that we're going to be getting less diverse candidates coming through the top end of the recruitment process? Do you even buy into that as a premise?
I don't. I think, and this is just my personal point of view, but I think it's what I really found instructive. It was the last couple of sentences of, and I'm going to read something now from the opinion, because this is what struck me. The first observation: the court did not say diversity is bad. In fact, it went to great lengths to say diversity is really good. It is the strength. It is what makes America as strong as it is. It said, however, and this is really important language, it says, at the same time, nothing prohibits universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected that applicant's life, so long as that discussion is concretely tied to a quality of character or unique ability that the particular applicant can contribute to the university. So you could take those words and immediately replace that with employer. Like they're saying, nothing prohibits employers from considering an applicant's discussion of how race, gender, age, whatever the dimension of diversity is, affected their lives, and how they can use that to become great in your workplace. So here's a contributor to your workplace. Classic example: I'm hiring a salesperson. And this is really helpful for HR people and people managers. It's a job, as you all know, salespeople are rejected a lot, right? They get a ton of rejection, one yes for 100 no's or whatever. And so if I have a candidate sitting across from me and that person says, listen, I have been a member of a community that is consistently being rejected historically and currently, I therefore can bring that, you caught that, right? Mm-hmm. I can bring that life experience to your workplace and therefore use that to be net an asset. It's going to make me better at my job. So again, I'm not saying this is a good or bad decision. I am saying I understand the logic, and I would be more concerned if the court had said race blind, color blind, period. You cannot. No, it specifically said you can have these conversations, and an applicant on an individualized basis can do that. Now, what that means is we as employers now have essentially a pathway to increasing, not just maintaining our diversity. We've just got to tie it to how it's going to contribute to the organization being successful.
Okay, so I don't want to go down a weird rabbit trail, but if I'm following you, which is not always easy for me, if I'm following you, though, it's like, okay, then what's the definition of diversity? Is it just skin color?
No, and
right?
No, and that's
and what I'm kind of drawn to in what Chief Justice Roberts is saying is that it's actually like reinforcing stereotyping.
Yes, hands down. There's no question, and I can tell you as an African American leader, and that is to me the upside of this decision. All Black people don't perform poorly on standardized tests. And that therein lies the problem is if you stereotype about a certain group of people, it's a shortcut. It's lazy in some ways from an HR perspective, is get to know the individual. It is okay to say Johnny does not test well, but Johnny could be a white guy who doesn't test well, right? It's so they're forcing us to engage in a case-by-case sort of review of an applicant in the case of an employment context to decide, will this person do well? And what about their experiences and any of their dimensions of diversity? It could be age, it could be, disability status, LGBTQ community. It doesn't matter. The court is just saying you can't make these generalized assumptions about a group of people, and therefore, build your diversity program around these stereotypes.
Yeah, and so employers have been prohibited from hiring or not hiring on the basis of race for decades. Right? So in one sense, this is not new information.
Right.
Right? Go ahead.
It's the how. It is the how. I see this. And again, I have to say time and time again, I could see people, especially in the civil rights community, especially people who are very, very interested in seeing our country take advantage of the beautiful diversity that exists in it, be bothered by this. They have largely, as a result of this opinion, if you take this opinion, you can build, I don't want to call it a workaround because that's not what was intended here, but you can build a robust diversity, equity, and inclusion program within the law. Two things can be true. And that's what the court is saying. Do it, but you've got to make sure you do it in a constitutionally permissible way. You can't violate the equal rights of other groups, one minority group over another minority group to achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve.
Let me ask you this. So I love to network. I love to connect people. And a lot of times that's in the context of helping people find their next role. And so I will say that I've got a friend that I want to help, and she's looking for a new job. And I know a leader who's in a position to make a hire. In fact, they even have an open position that I think this person would be a really good fit for. Yes. I've gotten feedback where somebody's like, hey, he looks great, but we really want to make this a diversity hire. And so, hey, if you've got any female candidates, Bob, like that is highly preferable to us right now.
Yeah.
How's that work?
Well, gosh, you asked for a thorny topic and you've gotten one. To ask for female candidates to be considered, or Black candidates, or Latino candidates, or whatever, is not an impermissible thing. Again, diversity is really important. Any workplace that does not see the advantage of having diverse perspectives around the table and experiences will ultimately fail. right? And probably and it won't take that long. That being said, I've never been bothered when someone calls me and says, we want to ensure that we have fished in various ponds. So I want candidates from different backgrounds. Where it bothers me, and we saw over the last couple of years in particular, where they'd say, I'm only going to consider this type of talent. That's problematic. It's constitutionally impermissible. And it also just creates tensions in the workplace for the person who was chosen based upon some belonging to some specific group, and for the rest of the employees who didn't get that opportunity, potential employees, applicants who didn't get the opportunity because they just they weren't born that way, whatever that way is, right? And it has created a real tension in the workforce. I was interested. There's a Pew, which is not some right-wing research organization. They found that 82% of adults in America don't believe that affirmative action continues to be necessary. Get the words right, but 82%. There's and a majority of African Americans. So this notion,
really.
Yes, 82% in admissions. And so it's fascinating to watch this. And so the headlines are, maybe the court was on to the mood of the country. There's this desire for us to have diversity, but not to specifically decide winners and losers based upon race, gender, national origin, age, etc. So we're just saying, make a really compelling case for a diverse pool of talent. And a lot of organizations have failed miserably at that. We recruit from the same schools, and those schools lack diversity in their graduates. We recruit from, and you described it perfectly, you call Bob and say, Bob, send me some names. Well, Bob knows people who look like Bob, who have experiences like Bob. It's not that he is racist. We naturally gravitate toward people who are like us. And I'll give you an example. I'm going to put myself on the spot here. I got a call now about a month ago from a corporation saying, we're looking for a new general counsel. Can you send me some names over? Bob, I think I'm a really evolved, good guy. I sent them 4 names. They were all Black lawyers. I was not intentionally excluding white people, but I know a lot of Black lawyers. I'm a Black lawyer, right? And you're asking me, so I wanted to throw those names, but it wasn't my expectation. And it shouldn't be the company's plan to say, we're going to hire one of those 4 people because we called Johnny a Black guy and we wanted a Black candidate. I would hope that you threw those 4 names into the pool with all sorts of different types of people, overlaid what you were looking for in the job, and then hired the best candidate for your culture and for your technical needs. If you did that, that's the way it works. And nothing the Supreme Court said Thursday makes that entire practice bad. It's actually pretty darn good.
So I really appreciate what you're saying, because something that I know that you and I have just resonated from the very get-go is when a workplace is diverse in all the definitions that might come into what diverse is, it by definition is richer.
Yes.
You're getting alternative points of view. You're seeing things in a way that maybe you wouldn't have naturally seen them, that your background, hasn't allowed you to see before. But, our first episode was on empathy and being an empathetic leader. Well, that opens up your world to be able to see a lot of different things. It's the mandating of it that I think is really kind of what the court is saying. It's like, we all desire, well, not we all, we should all desire, right, to have an equitable chance at opportunity, right? And so when and we also talked in the first episode about, basically when good values make for good business.
Yes.
Right. And it just, the richer the culture,
yes,
the richer the diversity, it's going to produce a better performing organization. It has to. A beautiful quilt, it's got all the colors and patterns and everything that's available, is just going to be much better than something that's just the same thing. It looks like the last one. It's the Model T version of a company, yeah, it's fine as long as they're all the same color, no problem. Well, who wants that? That's like the unhealthiest thing that you could have. So, pointed question, and I think you touched on it. So if I'm asking you the same thing twice, you can stop me. But some DEI officers at big companies are freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, this is problematic. We've just rolled the clock back 60 years. Like, this is really bad.
Right.
How would you address, a CHRO or a CDO who's freaking out on this?
Well, I'd say three things, and I start with empathy. I understand how, if you've spent your career, it's your life's work doing it this way, that this change is not going to be embraced readily by you. So I do, and I get it. Any change, even when it potentially could be good for you, is usually met with some form of resistance, and I understand it. So I tell them all, and I've had some of those phone calls, you've got to work through, because second thing, it is now the law of the land. Again, it may have been limited to college and universities in the actual words of the case, but this is now the approach. And so what we have to do, number three, is be the sort of very creative executives that all of us are expected to be on behalf of our companies. Things change. This has changed. Now, what are we going to do to continue to do the work, the critical, important work of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organizations, but do so within the context of the law? So I literally had a conversation with my friend the other day, DE&I professional yesterday, and she was like, I'm just done. I'm getting out of this business. I said, that's done. We need you. Our country needs the diversity that it has. It is, in fact, our strength. What you've got to do now is say, how do I achieve the results we want to achieve and need to achieve and be compliant with the law? That's all. That's the discussion. This was not some major pronouncement that we think diversity is not necessary. Let's only hire white, straight men. That's not what the message should be. And so that's what I'm saying to people is get back in the game. There were two approaches, two arguments. The Supreme Court landed one way, and now let's design programs. And that's why I used that quote in the beginning. There is a way to achieve all of the diversity, and not just racial diversity, but we can be as diverse as we want to be. We just can't go down the path, as some, I think, wrongfully have done, of saying, I'm only going to hire this type of person for this job, period, full stop. That has created bigger problems for our country than this case, because this case has essentially said, do it, but you got to do it in a constitutionally permissible way.
So can I put a headline on this? It's not the what, it's the how.
It's the how, and smart people figure out the how. I mean, they just do. So I've pushed back on this particular DE&I professional and said, this is going to test how smart you are. Okay, so now you've been delivered. The goal hasn't changed. We want a more diverse organization. Now you've got to figure out how to get there. That's simple. And if you're up for the challenge, then you're in the right profession. If you're not, listen, all of us as HR professionals have had laws changed on us constantly. Speaking of, and I hope we get just a minute to talk about the U.S. Postal Service case, right? It's a classic. One day, this was the way we've operated for the last 20 or 30 years when it comes to religious accommodation. As of yesterday, Friday, that changed. So you can't just say, oh, I can't manage people anymore because it changed. The Supreme Court changed the rules, and here it is. What are you going to do now?
Yep. Yeah, well, so let's talk about that one real quick. So this is a postal worker who, in their religious tradition, Sunday is the day of Sabbath, and they don't want to work on Sunday. That always worked because Postal Service didn't deliver mail on Sundays until Amazon said, hey, this would be a good use case for all those trucks and people you guys have. Why don't y'all deliver packages for us on Sunday and creates a new revenue stream for you?
And by the way, can I say this, Bob? Not just Amazon made that decision. Customers said, Amazon, I don't want to have to wait from Friday to Monday to get my stuff.
Fair enough. Exactly. So Amazon's following the customer, and they say, okay, now we need fulfillment for this. So Postal Service, you guys have the assets. Let's do a deal. And the guy's like, well, wait a minute. That ain't what I signed up for.
Yes,
like this always worked for me. And it's so back to the mutuality, right? It goes both ways. You thought you're signing up for one thing, and then the rules kind of changed on you. Well, that's the same thing for the company. Thought they were signing up for one thing, and then the rules changed on them. So, how would you encourage the employer community now, because the guts of it, if I understand it, was previously it was a de minimis burden on the company to be able to accommodate it, and now it's substantial hardship or whatever. It's like it's a much higher hurdle rate that they've got to prove, instead of, oh, it's just a little bit, it's inconvenient for me, so yeah, I don't want to do this. Versus, no, you really have to prove this is an undue hardship to you. How do you think this is going to impact employers more broadly?
So I'm going to be controversial here.
What?
I think to me, surprise, I think this is a good thing. And especially because of the conversations that we had around empathy. If you sincerely hold a religious belief and you use Sunday, Saturday, pick a day as your Sabbath, we as employers should try to accommodate that. We should not say, well, I'll do it. You sincerely hold it, but I'll do it if there's where it essentially doesn't impact me at all. That's not empathetic, because an empathetic leader says, if that means so much to you, let me see if there is a way for me to do it. You know, clearly, if it means I'm a 5-person shop and 2 of my employees are out on Sunday and it's going to put me out of business, the court said that's undue hardship. I get it. You don't have to do it, employer. But if you have 600,000 employees, as is the case of the U.S. Postal Service, you can kind of figure this out if you choose to. It may cost you a little bit, but you've got a gazillion-dollar budget. And so it's not an undue hardship. Hire an extra person to work just that day, pay them a premium, do whatever you need to do. I think this was a very good decision on behalf of the Supreme Court from the employee rights standpoint. And it's going to force us to be more empathetic. So forget the transactional side of what is an undue hardship. If you start from the standpoint, especially when it comes to religion, one of the foundational issues of how our country was built, freedom of religion, if we believe that, and I think that is part of our strength, then what this is saying to employers is don't just give lip service to it. It is a form of diversity. Right? All of you who are talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, people who practice on a Sunday or Saturday or whatever day are practicing their religious ritual. Let's find a way. Let's start with how can we make this happen? Not start with how can we not make this happen? That's my worldview. And HR practitioners, will it make our jobs more difficult? Surely. People managers, will it make your job more difficult? Surely, because it's easy enough to tell people show up on Sunday or don't work here. Yes, it's made it more difficult, but it's doable. And I think it rests in the very, very important diversity world and this cultural commitment to being empathetic leaders where we can be.
Yeah, and so completely agree. And you talked about just change, and things are just going to get more complicated. It's going to require more creative problem solvers. But again, like if I believe that, well, the company is taking care of my need, they're being accommodating to something that's very important to me, my loyalty to that company goes up. Now, that's a retention strategy. That's a recruitment strategy for somebody, not, oh, crap, now I've got this problem to deal with. What's this going to cost me? What's it going to cost you? I bet you could build an ROI case of how you benefit disproportionately from this.
Easily you can. And that's where we have to, and I would make the case going back to the affirmative action case. All of these things are maybe once you get over the initial shock, it's a blessing in disguise. If I can have an employee, because the guy quit. In the case of the Postal Service employee, when they refused to give him that Sunday off, he quit. This wasn't a situation where he just trudged through.
Right.
We will lose employees if we don't figure out how to deal in this new abnormal world that we're living in. And this idea that you say, here are my rules, take it or leave it, it doesn't work anymore. It's not going to work. And I would submit to you, it wasn't always good anyway. We have to figure out the right balance, employee rights, employers' rights, and we figure this all out. But I love this decision, not because I'm a super religious guy and I say this is great because, but it's not that. It's about empathy. It's about starting with how do we do this versus how do we not do it for the employee. That's my worldview, and I'm an optimist. You know that. Even with the affirmative action decision, one can read whatever, pick 2 or 3 sentences that suggest that the world is horrible and the country is no longer committed to diversity, or you can read parts of it which say, no, our diversity is our strength. Let's just figure out how to do it in a constitutionally permissible way.
So if we just zoomed out for half a second and start to put a bow on this,
Yes.
we had 3 really big decisions come down this week. What's the headline? What's the theme? What if I'm an HR executive or a business leader, and or on the employee side, what's kind of the key takeaway?
Key takeaway is work matters. If you're in HR right now, you got to feel really good, because the docket from the Supreme Court, and I think future dockets, are going to be really, really focused on what we do most. That's it. But the second thing is, we've talked about the importance of adaptability and flexibility and embracing change. Well, it's happening. And so these are more than buzzwords. We think about the Fair Labor Standards Act, 1938, I think it was. It's overdue. Legislatively, we built the law, we built court opinions interpreting that law are old. And it's just time for a refresh. It's like a house that needs a refresh. We're going to see more and more of these cases, and it's not okay to hold on to the way it used to be, because the world of work has changed so significantly. That's going to put a lot of pressure on HR practitioners. But let me tell you what's really going to put the pressure on: people managers. Because, I've been in the business world now 25 years. I mastered it. And then you change the rules, right? I thought I'd figured out the religious accommodation rules, and now all of a sudden I have to start all over. This is really, really what's happening, is this change. And so I would approach a lot of this, and I'm hoping we all continue to do this from a change management standpoint. We're experts at that, right? We tell people in HR about the importance of change management when it comes to rolling out new marketing campaigns or new products or whatever. We've actually got to change the way people experience work and how we manage workers. Yeah. This is all good.
I was going to say, just speaking directly to HR professionals, this is good, because, we've wanted a seat at the table, right? The proverbial seat at the table. And clearly COVID put that into motion. As I heard a smart guy say, who was the first person the CEO called? It was their HR leader. But these people it's great that the court's looking at this stuff, right? And they're making decisions. Again, you can like it, you can not like it, but it is putting people at the forefront of company, of
everything. And that's what I got to say, Bob, you nailed it. Do you know boards of directors who've been focused on diversity, equity, inclusion as of late? CEOs are now turning to that DE&I professional now and saying, this case just came down. What are we going to do?
What do we do?
Gives you an opportunity as a professional to really shine. Just like COVID created an amazing opportunity for HR professionals to focus on, to show their value to the organization. I think these cases give us a lot of an opportunity. Now, I have a CFO, I have a chief marketing officer, but right now, top of mind, companies are saying, how do we get around? How do we do this? And I don't mean get around in a negative sense. How do we navigate the new abnormal? And you, DE professional, you HR expert, you have skills and know-how and experiences that none of us around the table, the CFO, the chief marketing officer, CTO, they don't know this stuff. You do. So I see this all as a great opportunity. I had more calls from the mainstream media the last couple of days than I've had the last couple of months, because everyone wants to know, what do we think about this? This is a great opportunity for HR.
Yeah, and so if you think about, again, as I heard a smart guy talk about, people experts, business experts, culture experts. You take the people and the culture part. Okay, they've created a new set of rules. Yes. How do we take those rules to drive superior business results? Because as you say, that's what the people in the boardroom, that's what they're trying to figure out. What are the business implications to us? And for the HR professional, the executive, to be able to come in and have a creative, winning strategy that allows the company to not just survive these new things, but thrive.
Yes.
That is a career that people should be aspiring to.
Absolutely. And it's going to, let me just very practically and tactically explain. It's going to make your role more important. It's going to make your salary higher. It's going to make your trajectory in terms of now you are proving strategy. So now you actually know how to respond. This is a huge opportunity for us if we would embrace it as such. Most importantly, though, it's a huge opportunity for our employees and their families. And if you do that, this is also about making us a better society. We at SHRM oftentimes say better workplaces lead to a better world. And if you believe that, it's not just what it will do for you, but I think society writ large becomes better if we embrace this stuff. Resisting it, you can be upset that it didn't land the way you wanted it to land. And believe me, I've been there. Do that overnight, do it over the weekend, but get back in the game Monday and let's find solutions to help our businesses deal with these most vexing societal issues.
Which is what I really appreciate about what you told your DEI friend yesterday, which is this is the exact time to not leave.
Right.
The exact time not to leave. You've been set up for success.
That's right.
Through all this stuff. It may mean your programs change and things that you've been working on, but your board is freaking out on this too. So anyway, Johnny, I can't think of a better way to end this episode. We're going to pick up a couple of these other cases on future episodes of the WorkWire. There is no shortage of amazing things for us to talk about and to be able to help people think through their lives and where work fits in to their lives. But, I'm just thankful for our friendship and always appreciate our time together.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
And we look forward to having you on another episode of The WorkWire very soon. So thank you.
Check out career.club for personalized help with your job search. Visit shrm.org to become part of the largest human resources organization worldwide.